Penguin Audio presents Phantom Prey, written by John Sandford, read by Richard Ferrone. Chapter 1. Something wrong here, a cold whisper of evil. The house was a modernistic relic, glass and stone and redwood, 60 years old and gone creaky. Not all haunted houses were Victorian. Sometimes at night, when she was alone, she'd feel a sudden coolness, as though somebody or something had just slipped by. This was different. She couldn't pin it down, but it was palpable. She thought about stepping back into the garage. "Who's there?" she called. She got nothing back but an echo. The house was dark, except for desk lamps in the front room and in the study, which were triggered by photocells at dusk. She could hear the furnace running. Nothing else, but the hair on her forearms and the back of her neck stood upright. Some atavistic sense was picking up a threat. She looked to her right. The arming light on the security panel was steady, so the security system had been disarmed. That was decisive. The house should be empty. The security system should be armed. She stepped back, moving quickly, around the nose of the Jaguar to the Mercedes. She yanked open the driver's side door, reached under the front seat to the storage bin, popped the lid, and lifted out the Ladysmith .38. Stood listening again, the gun cool in her hand and heavy. Couldn't even hear the furnace now. The Mercedes' engine pinged, cooling down. The overhead garage lights were still on, and she watched the door to the house. Something wrong, but the house felt empty. Her nose twitched. She could smell exhaust from the car, but when she'd stepped through the door to the house, there'd been something else, a subtle stink that shouldn't have been there. Not sweat, not body odor, not perfume, not flatulence, but something organic. Meat? She had her purse over her shoulder, her cell phone right there. Call the police? What would she tell them? That something was not right? That something smelled a little funky? They'd think she was crazy. She put her purse on the hood of the Jag, held the gun in front of her like the handgun instructor had told her. She was an athlete, and a professional athlete at that. Swimming, dance, martial arts, weights, Pilates, yoga. The hard stuff, her body control, was nearly perfect. She had shot the eyes out of the gun instructor's bad guy target. He had been mildly impressed, but only mildly. A cop for most of his life had told her that every shooting he'd ever seen had been a screw-up. The question is not whether you can hit something at 7 yards. The question is whether you can sort out all the problems when you've got a loaded gun in your hand, he'd said, a rehearsed speech that might have been written on a 3x5 card. You have no time, but you have to figure out what's happening, what's going on, to shoot or not to shoot. It all comes down to a tenth of a second, in the dark. You don't want to shoot your kid or a neighbor. You don't want to not shoot a junkie with a butcher knife coming for your throat. There wouldn't be a neighbor in the house. The neighborhood was private, standoffish. People drew their friends from their businesses, from their schools, not from the street. The housekeeper was long gone. Her daughter? Frances had the security code, but she always called ahead. She called out, "Francie?" No response. Again, louder. "Fran? Are you there?" Starting to feel foolish now. Then she remembered what the gun instructor had told her. About the time you start to feel like an idiot, that's when they'll get you. If you're scared enough to have the gun out, then the situation is serious enough that you can't be abashed. She remembered the word, abashed. Was she abashed? She was back at the door, kept the muzzle of the gun pointing straight ahead, called out, "Frances, I've got a gun because I'm scared. Don't jump out if this is a joke. Frances?" She let go of the gun with her left hand, reached around the door jamb, and flicked on the lights. The entry was clear, and as far as she could see—
Sample complete. Ready to continue?